Ladies and gentlemen, let's all put our hands together and welcome Anna M. Caballero, Secretary of Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you today. It's really a thrill, and it's kind of ironic that the topic I'm going to talk about today, which is the drought, is when we have a good rainstorm, and we're all excited about that, right? We're happy that it's finally raining, and it's creating all of these issues for us, but we're really glad it's raining. In 2009, we had the last drought. California obviously is an arid state, and that drought had a tremendous impact in rural California. As you heard, I live in Salinas, and rural California is very near and dear to my heart. I spent a significant amount of time in the Central Valley, in Mendota, Firebaugh, in Huron, having conversations with people about what was going on in their community due to the lack of water. And it was a really incredible experience to me because I really got an opportunity to understand our arcane water system and how dependent we are in rural California to the one thing that you need to be able to grow crops. And it was really great to hear Secretary Ross right before me because she really, I think, gave you a really great idea of how important it is if you want to eat, and California is pretty important to that. And we have some of the highest standards in the country. But I had the opportunity to speak to the people that were most affected by it: farm workers, small business, and farmers. And now, fast forward to 2014, we're in the third year of hopefully the last year of a 3-year drought. The prognosis is not clear. But in January of 2014, Governor Brown, recognizing the crisis that was fast approaching, issued an executive order. And that executive order gave direction to a number of agencies and departments, including ours, which said, and to the public as well. And what it said is, we need to reduce our consumption of water by 20%. And it helped to establish the Drought Task Force as an entity within state government that has been meeting almost on a weekly basis to prognosticate, to look forward and to say, what are the issues that we're likely to face in this state if we don't have enough water, and what are the solutions that we need to come up with in order to be able to help communities. And that executive order was critical to getting us all together, thinking outside of our silos and working collaboratively in order to be able to accomplish some tasks and some goals that we set for ourselves. So we were involved, our agency was involved, and also Housing and Community Development. And our task was to identify resources to be able to help communities and families that were at risk of becoming homeless because of the drought. So identify the resources. 2 is to be able to determine how those resources would be deployed. And 3, to be able to determine what the size of the problem was going to be and who was going to be our partners to be able to make that, to be able to make those resources available. So when we went out and we started looking at who can help us with the data, where are we going to be able to find the information to be able to say, okay, in January, in September, this is where we want to be. We realized as we were collecting data, and we were focused on a data-driven approach, we realized that we just don't keep the information that we need in order to be able to make good decisions. And understand that this is an open process. Everybody's going to know we're distributing funds. We need to make sure that it is, however we distribute those funds, that it's acceptable to majority of the 36 million Californians, and that we're really helping the families and the people that we most want to help. And so the unemployment insurance data was not the kind of data that you would utilize to be able to project into the future. It's not real-time data. It tells you what's happening a snapshot backwards. Believe it or not, the ag commissioners collect a lot of data on agricultural activity in their counties, so there are 58 of them, but they don't collect real-time data on who's planting and what they're planting, how much the water that they utilize. And so when we looked around, we didn't find anything that would help us within the state government that would help us to determine how we're going to deploy these resources. So we ended up creating a partnership. The Drought Task Force created a partnership with UC Davis. UC Davis in 2009 had created a model, and they went out and they determined how much water was not going to be distributed. So 2/3 of the state relies on delta water. And that is not just urban centers, but also rural California, in particular the west side of the valley. And so they had created a platform that they put data in, and they were able to make some projections for the future as to exactly what might happen if water deliveries were not available. And that data turned out to be critically important to our analysis of how are we going to be able to identify the counties, as a majority of the state was involved in either an extreme or very extreme drought situation. And so with that partnership, we were able to identify the reduction in the number of acres that would be planted based on the water that was not going to be delivered, and could extrapolate from that how many jobs would be lost. It was projected that about 17,000 full and part-time jobs in agriculture would be lost. And so that was the direct impact, and then there were ancillary impacts affecting small businesses and trucking companies and all of the products that are used in agriculture production, boxes and those kinds of things. And with that information, we were able to determine that exactly where the money would be distributed, and that we needed a community partner that would be able to dispense resources. So HCD was able to put together a pool of money, $10 million, and their job was particularly difficult because they don't do grants to individual families. That's not the job that they normally do. They were being asked to retool their work product and to be able to come up with a project where they could get temporary assistance, housing assistance, and utility assistance to families at risk of becoming homeless because of the drought, because they were working less hours. And so they were able to put together a project that would provide temporary assistance for up to 90 days, as well as pay the utilities, to give people a chance to determine whether they needed to move, whether they needed to go outside of their community to find work, and to be able to actually continue living in their communities if they so desired. They were able to find a community partner that was able to distribute the funds in all of the counties that we thought it was important for them to reach. And the really great thing about this partnership is that it provided an opportunity for families that otherwise would have been at risk of homelessness. In the end, we have been involved in this campaign to get resources out to the community for now close to 7 months. The water is very helpful, but it's not the end all. We were able to help 15,000 individuals, about 3,800 families, $7.5 million has been distributed. And I had an opportunity recently to speak to a couple of the recipients of the temporary housing assistance. It's a drop in the bucket. It didn't provide an opportunity for people to stay for a long period of time, but it was an opportunity to get them out of a temporary crisis. And had some terrific conversations with some of the farm workers who have been really impacted at such a basic level. They were very, very appreciative of the assistance. It made the difference in their family's existence. Both of the women that I spoke to were single head of households. One lived in Huron and the other in Kerman. And I asked them, I said, tell me what's been the biggest impact to your life and of this assistance. And they said it allowed us to continue looking for work and to continue to live as a family and not have to split up. And it alleviated great anxiety because as we looked for work and couldn't find it, or found 2 days here and 1 day here, our families were trying to figure out how we were going to survive. And so it was really, really critical to our family. And then I asked them, what is the message you would like people to hear about what's going on in your community because of the drought? And both of them said independently, look, we really appreciate this help, and it made all the difference in our lives this year. But what we really want are jobs. What we really want is to work. It's where we get our self-esteem, it's where we get our pride. And you have to remember, these are women that are working in some of the hardest jobs in our state. They want to work in the tomato and in the cantaloupe, in the peppers. And for them, what they really wanted was work. And they got very emotional and started crying on the phone, and it was very emotional for me because the bottom line is a lot of times we hear that the drought is bad, we hear that it's a difficult time, but it doesn't impact us because we live in rural communities. And as you drive around and you see people watering when it's raining, so if any of you have your sprinklers on right now, please go home and turn them off. It's important because the more that we can save water in all of our daily activities, the better it's going to be for the environment, and the better it's going to be for us to make wise choices about where we want to spend or where we want to send or how we want to use our precious water. California is a dry state. It's always been a dry state, and we're anticipated to grow in population. And if we're going to be able to continue to produce some of the finest quality crops in the country and be able to keep our technology sector going as well, because they also rely on water. The Bay Area relies on the water that gets sent there. We're all going to have to do our part to determine how we can save water and how we can create an opportunity for us to be able to have the water that we need during the downtimes, and we're all a part of that. So I was very moved by the story that these women told, because as I said, it's a 90-day temporary solution. It doesn't craft the long-term solution, but we were able to do that with a department that normally does grants to build affordable housing in communities and helps to develop communities. We were able to narrow down our focus and to say, how do we create resources so that we can save some of the most vulnerable people in our communities whose lives are dependent upon getting up and working every day. And I know you know what that's like, because that's what we all do. We depend on being able to get up and that work is going to be there and that our jobs are going to be there. And in rural communities that are really dependent on water, that becomes a much more vulnerable task, is to be able to provide opportunities for them. So the activist that I am, I don't ever show up and do a presentation unless I have the opportunity to also challenge the audience to do something. This issue of water reliability is critically important for all of us. We all can play a part in the solution. We all have the opportunity to go home, change our behavior, and to do things a little bit differently. So the challenge that I issue to you is the challenge the governor issued to all of us in January of 2014, which is, can you reduce your water usage by 20% and think more strategically about how you use water, when you use it, and how you do your daily business, so that as the state moves forward growing and making decisions about how water is going to be distributed throughout the state and how it's going to be prioritized, that we're all part of the solution as well. And so that means looking at your landscaping and figuring out if that's where you want to save your water. I was going to make a joke about only taking 1 shower a week, but I didn't think that would go over very well. But in any case, we do. We all use water on a daily basis. And part of our challenge is to determine what kind of changes are we willing to make in our life. Changes that can actually make a big difference. And that's the challenge that I issue for you today, is to figure out what are the things that you're willing to do, and to keep in mind the 2 women that I had a chance to meet and talk to about the assistance, Lourdes and Paloma, both of them who are struggling to feed their families, struggling, and they're just the snapshot. I could go through the Central Valley and talk to farm worker after farm worker, small business people in Mendota who, the corner store and the gas station and the mechanic, who none of whom are working because people in the community don't have the resources to be able to access those services any longer. The challenge for them is that they make the money during the 9 months that they're working so that they can survive the 3 or 4 months that they're unemployed during the winter. They have no resources that have been saved up during the busy time of the agricultural season. So you're talking about families that are really, really struggling. And those are the people that I think about when I'm turning off the water, when I'm brushing my teeth, when I'm not washing my car and it looks like a mess. And when I've decided that I don't want to be watering when it's raining, or I turn down the sprinklers so that I'm not watering 3 days a week, I'm watering 2 days a week. All of those are the kinds of things that you can have a tremendous impact on and can participate with, and be creative as well. The state has a website up where if you see the state overusing water, you can get on the website and make or put in, I didn't want to say complaint, but you can put in information and we can change the way that we do business at the state level as well. So that's my challenge to you, is to remember people whose daily lives are dependent on the use of water. This is the tip of the iceberg. We're hoping that we have a really good rainy season this year, but we can't rely on that. We have to rely on each other. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for your participation and your hard work on behalf of the citizens of California. The work you do is tremendously important. The description that I gave you is just a snapshot of some of the issues that we're trying to solve on a day-to-day basis, and real people really care about the work that you do, and it really makes a difference in their lives. So thank you very much.